This is a Patreon suggested video from one of our first founding members, PC Gamer. I'd like to thank you for your donation, and if you guys would like to become part of the Founders Club, there are 9 spots left. All you have to do is donate the minimum of $5 a month, and you will always receive the top tier perks. Right now, that's $20 a month, so for $5 a month, you get $20 perks, and as we grow, it'll keep going up and up and up. So as you donate $5, you'll get $50 perks, $100 perks, and so on. There's a whole video for it. Make sure to join and click the link below and support the channel. Part 1 of this video has a lot more video in it and graphics. We put a lot into that, and we unfortunately are going to be doing this one more like a podcast just for the conclusion, because we have a special Vikings project that came up that will be out later tonight that we actually can't talk about. It's going to be exciting though, so keep your eye on the channel. Thank you guys again. I'm Justin Thomas, and enjoy. Hello everybody, and welcome back to Bite Size History. I'm Justin Thomas, and we are concluding the epic story of the real historical figure who served as the inspiration for Game of Thrones, Robb Stark, and was the last true-born Prince of Wales. I'm speaking of Owen Glyndŵr. If you guys haven't seen the first half of this, make sure to click up in the corner, probably somewhere up there, and the link will also be below. But not only was Owen Glyndŵr the inspiration for Robb Stark, he was the inspiration for one of the major prophecies in both the series of Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones. I'm talking about the prince that was promised. Now, Glyndŵr was a prince that was promised himself, but it was known as Mab Daragon. He was a Welsh hero, an amazing man, and an amazing story that you don't hear too often. So if this is your first time finding me, make sure to hit that subscribe button and also that notification button so you get alerts every single time I upload. And that's it. Let's jump into it. This will be part 2 of Bite Size History, Owen Glyndŵr. When we last left our hero, Owen Glyndŵr, he had served the crown loyally his entire life under the now deceased King Richard II, and had been pushed to his breaking point by a series of slights and abuses by the so-called usurper king, King Henry IV. And now, with his back to the wall, he did what any man would do. He had himself crowned as Prince of Wales. And to be honest, it's hard to really blame him. When you figure that Owen was the focus of Mab Daragon prophecy of the Welsh, the destined son to lead them from suppression of the English into freedom, there's a heavy chance that all of his life he felt a burden of responsibility to his native people. Yet Glyndŵr, being a measured man, and let's face it, probably wasn't in a hurry to get his head chopped off, chose a life that was in service to the crown, and not only to the past king, but the current king, who had now labeled him an enemy of the state. So Owen, after just 1 year of rebellion, has managed to make a fool of the king with a series of successful military raids, utilizing guerrilla warfare to let old King Henry know that he wasn't just going to step in the whales and squash this rebellion with a single swing of his sword. In fact, Glyndŵr had made sure Henry wasn't even able to draw his sword before he suffered multiple defeats, and when the king finally does find his footing, it's winter, and Glyndŵr and his forces of skilled Welshmen taken to the Highlands, both literally and metaphorically leaving Henry out in the cold, leaving the king with no one to fight and no choice but to give up all the ground he struggled to gain and return home with his tail between his legs. So when spring returns, so does Glyndŵr. By this time his numbers had swelled, and rumors of Glyndŵr's mythical powers, such as the ability to change weather and so on, had not only helped Glyndŵr recruit more to his side, but also had begun to spread throughout the English ranks, only furthering the deteriorating morale amongst the king's men. As the fighting begins again, it isn't led by Glyndŵr this time, but another prominent Welshman and his brother who joined his side. It's now clear that this is no ordinary uprising. This is a full-on revolution. This is further proven when Glyndŵr's forces take several more notable strongholds, which had been ironically constructed to keep the Welsh under the thumb of the crown, but now served as a strong defense for the Welsh against the English. Now, up until this point, Glyndŵr had not engaged in a pitched battle with the English, but in 1401 this changes. The two forces meet up on a battlefield in mid-Wales. And despite the Welsh forces being outnumbered by 2 to 1, they win the day and defeat the crown's forces. A lot of historians cite the highly skilled Welsh archers for the reason they were able to overcome such odds, but it's unknown exactly how they accomplished this. But we do know that not only did they win on the battlefield, but it was also a huge win for the morale. It's clear from the historical documents we have from this period that Glyndŵr is now, after this point, considered to be much more than a threat to the English control of Wales, but possibly a threat to England as a whole. Also, something else amazing happens around this time. More Welshmen flock to Glyndŵr, but not just peasants and a few nobles. Native Welshmen from all around France and Scotland, even further, returned home to join the cause, many of these being mid-gentry scholars who had been studying abroad, some from Oxford. Wales was finally uniting, and they were doing it under the banner of Glyndŵr. High lords to militia grunts and scholars from abroad joined together. But just like many good things in life, which don't last forever, neither did this. If King Henry couldn't get his hand on Glyndŵr, he would get his hands on anyone and everyone who he saw as a supporter, and unfortunately this leads to the loss of many innocents' lives. But this did not deter the Welsh, they stayed strong. There's even a famous account of a nobleman acting as if he is betraying Glyndŵr and offering to take the king himself to Glyndŵr. But what he did was take the king on a wild goose chase, only furthering the humiliation and rage of the king. Unfortunately, this Welshman paid dearly for his ruse, and was executed in the most brutal way, drawn and quartered. There is now a monument in Wales for this gentleman. Henry carried out many atrocities, including showing up at one of the holiest sites in Wales, a Cistercian abbey named Strata Florida, which stood in mid-Wales, where Henry and his company engaged in binge drinking, accompanied by many signs of disrespect many nights. Then when he had his fill of wine and petty abuses to the monks in the abbey itself, he decided to execute the monks, whom he assumed were supporters of Glyndŵr, which they probably were, but they were holy men and took no actual part in the rebellion, but nonetheless were killed and the abbey was burned. Despite these atrocities, the people of Wales stay strong. Back throughout the next years, Glyndŵr experiences a series of military and diplomatic successes. Everything seems to be going right for Glyndŵr. He has more and more prominent nobles joining his cause, and even defeats Sir Reginald Grey in battle. He captures Grey, whom he ransoms back to the crown at a heavy cost, probably making Henry really regret ignoring Owen and Grey's land disputes, that in many ways paved the road to this full-on revolt with Wales. This had become something bigger than just these personal slights for Owen. This had become a nationwide fight for the independence of Wales. Glyndŵr gets one of his biggest victories in June of 1402. Owen defeated an English force led by Sir Edmund Mortimer at the Battle of Brynglas. The Welsh were highly outnumbered again, and the English, led by this very competent general, were obviously ready to smash Glyndŵr and his forces with some true English might. But it turns out the English might have overlooked the fact that a majority of their archers were Welsh, and underestimating the pride and loyalty of the Welshmen, they went into battle with hundreds of Welsh archers by their side. And once the battle begins, we see the brilliant execution of one of the greatest tactical maneuvers ever to be carried out in battle. In one swift movement, the Welsh bowmen show their true alliances and rain down arrows on the same Englishmen they went into battle beside. And Glyndŵr and his cavalry slam to the left flank of the English. The Welsh take the day. It's still unclear if the archers were always loyal to Glyndŵr or had been turned to Glyndŵr's side in secret in the days leading to the battle, but the result is the same. In sharp contrast to his attitude for the ransom of de Grey, Henry was not willing to pay the ransom for Mortimer. Mortimer's nephew could be said to have a greater claim to the English throne than Henry himself, so a speedy release probably wasn't a priority for Henry. In response, Mortimer negotiates an alliance with Owen and marries one of Owen's daughters the same year. It is also in 1402 that the French and Bretons helping Owen was first heard. The French were certainly hoping to use Wales, as they'd used Scotland in the past, as a base to fight the English. So it becomes very clear that this is not just the Welsh who have an issue with King Henry IV, it's a lot of the nobles of England. Glyndŵr enjoys a series of successes throughout Wales, and shortly after, a prominent noble family joins the cause, the Percys. Now, this is Thomas Percy, Earl of Worcester. He starts to march towards Shrewsbury, where they intend to do battle with a force that's under the other Prince of Wales' command. Now, Thomas Percy was also known as Hotspur. You'll find out why in a moment. When Percy gets there, he is supposed to wait for the armies of Glyndŵr and Percy's father. But acting rashly, he engages the much larger force, ensuing the Battle of Shrewsbury. There's fierce and heavy casualties on both sides, but when Henry Percy himself is struck down and killed, his own forces flee. This serves as a turning point for the rebellion, and after a series of other events that spelled downfall for Glyndŵr himself, who had never lost a battle, was still losing the war by the third year of the rebellion. But not all was lost. Before the rebellion fades away, Glyndŵr holds the first and last official parliamentary session of Wales, which is legitimized by the attendance of French and Scottish diplomats, who all witnessed the official crowning of Owen as Prince of Wales, a full 4 years after the initial symbolic crowning of Owen as Prince of Wales. They signed treaties, they took steps to create an independent church and government of Wales, and even took steps towards creating a Wales that was a democracy. All this was with good intentions and faith, but it was not destined to last. Most of the downfall of the Welsh forces is due to unorganized tactics and missteps by other generals and a now large Welsh force, which dwindles their numbers significantly. Slowly but surely, the Welsh start to make bigger and bigger mistakes and lose more and more men. A notable event and a good example of this is when an overconfident Welsh force take a major English stronghold without the proper numbers. And the Prince of Wales, The other Prince of Wales, Prince Howell, the eldest son of King Henry, is waiting with plenty of men, not only to survive the siege, but destroy the forces. It's an estimated over 800 Welshmen are lost, they are decimated. Now, there is a glimmer of hope before the rebellion is squashed. They are joined by the French for a short period of time. King Charles signs a treaty with Glyndŵr, and they had one last series of successes against the English, and it's even rumored that Glyndŵr and the French made their way into mainland England, but hope disappears just as quickly as it came. For unknown reasons, the French return to France and leave Owen Glyndŵr and the Welsh forces extremely exposed. Owen sends a final plea to the French, but when the letter is received, it's received by Charles VI, who has become mentally ill to the point that he could not function, much less order further military action. It's not officially documented what causes this, but I'm going to go ahead and make one joke here, and it's probably the truth. It's probably syphilis. It's syphilis for sure. Guy had syphilis. This is the end for the rebellion. The English re-seize Wales over the next decade, resulting in the deaths of many of Owen's sons and daughters, as well as other kin. But Owen continued the fight into his elder years, but just as his health dwindles, so does his power. He continues to launch small-scale raids from the mountains for another 10 years, and suddenly, just as Glyndŵr had disappeared into the highlands in the early days of rebellion, he disappeared once more, never to appear again. He's never killed in battle. He's rumored to die a natural death in his late years at one of the homes of his daughters on the Welsh-English border. Owen Glyndŵr never lost a fight. He never betrayed his country, nor did his country betray him. His rebellion failed, but the spirit of it did not. Owen inspired an undying spirit that until this day the people of Wales hold, a strong sense of independence and unity. Justin Thomas here, and if you enjoyed that video, why don't you check out some of the videos right here, possibly right here, but make sure to subscribe right here, and we'll see you guys soon.